Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing tonight? We're jumping right into it. How you going? No box breaks tonight. We are fully locked and loaded, kind of prepping for Compendium of Wraith, and we'll be doing box breaks once that set drops. But for tonight, we're gonna do a Market Minute live. This past weekend, the video I put out wasn't your typical Market Minute. Didn't really break down data heavily on those cards. It was more of like a prediction, fun video where I talked about what generics we could see reprinted in the Antiquity packs, because the verbiage does say like iconic generic cards, right? So kind of breaking that down. If you haven't checked that out, go check that out on the channel. Well, maybe after the stream ends here. But so I picked out some cards that I think are interesting to talk about. Some of the peeps in my Discord kind of gave me a heads up, or kind of did a request for some of these cards as well. Not specific cards, but general cards, types of cards. So we're going to start off with, as you can see, Rich is a Tropal Donnie. Hey, Topple. Hi, how you doing? Good luck in your armory. And go get them there, buddy. Yeah, so it's been a couple weeks since we've streamed live, and yeah, my work has been crazy, so that's been taking me out of the streaming like schedule. I guess you could say a lot of travel where I just wasn't around on Tuesdays. So but we're back this week, and like I said, we're going to start off by, well, this whole show is going to be just looking through some of the cards that are on TCG Player and kind of talking through what possibly we see when Compendium drops, right? So yeah, first one here is I'm going to go through. I've actually had this question asked to me a couple times about the Fableds, and it's kind of a hard question to ask, honestly, or answer. It's an easy question to ask. I find it harder to answer because, well, what is the non-foil reprints of the Fableds going to do to the current versions of the Fableds? This is the first time Fableds have been reprinted. They're coming in non-foil only, so we can start there. If we look at the product page for Compendium of Wraith, it calls that out in black and white. So these reprinted Fableds will be non-foils. Pretty cool though. They have like an extended border, but they will be non-foil. So that leans in towards the like player's version of the card. And the latest one that we got revealed was Riches. It's a generic card, obviously. And we're taking a look at it here. So currently it's sitting at $295. 3-month snapshot on this guy. 285 is the low. 574 was the high sale price, with 44 sold. Yeah, it was a pretty popular Fabled. I would say, since it came out. We could like even open the snapshot up a little bit, and basically, yeah, 191 sold, which is, I think, for a Fabled, probably on the higher end, to be honest. And obviously this is just TCG Player, but yeah, 574 is the high. And if we look at the last couple sales, you can see here that it's been dropping, right? 375, 371, 318. Now we're down to 285, and we're currently sitting at 295. One thing to note about this Fabled also is that it only comes in rainbow foil right now. There is no cold foil version. So that's a thing that we need to kind of keep in mind. Hey, Soxilio, how you doing, dude? Thanks for joining. We're just chatting up some fables to start. I got probably 8 or 9 more cards. And then obviously we can spitball. If you have a card that you want me to highlight this on this stream, go ahead, throw it up in chat, and we'll take a look at it. Sup, Freiberg, how you doing? Playing a butt. Yeah, nice. Awesome. I hope your RTN did well, or you did well at the RTN. You had fun. It's been a while since I opened an IR Tunic. Yeah, that would be kind of crazy. That is a true statement. It will be an interesting time, kind of a throwback, right? Opening some of the old, the old cards in name, but new cards in time frame. Yeah, so we are sitting at 295 on this one. Riches. This is a rainbow foil. It's coming in non-foil. There's currently, it looks like there's 20 or so. That looks about right. Not a lot of these pulled. I think it's it's still pretty solid, right? Gravy's still going to be around. He's at 0.5 multiplier until the middle of the year. And I do see the price being dropped, right? Because this is a playable fabled. It's a newer fabled, so the collectability might not be as high on this one just yet, right? It isn't like a vintage card, although, are any cards in Fab vintage? But, I'll use my experience as the example here, and what I'm trying to say is that, like, I'm not going to run out and sell my Rainbow Foil Eye because I've owned it since probably 2020, right? And I play with Rainbow Foils, so I'm just going to keep my Eye and not really look to upgrade or like shift into a non-foil version of it. Riches doesn't really have that pull, so I could see the playable card being really pushing driving sales there. I suspect this card drops maybe another $100, $150. Again, we're talking about Gravy still being in like the top 3 or 4 win rate at RTNs. So, there's still going to be some pull on this card. Maybe Victor gets something in Compendium that really makes him cook, and then now you got a couple heroes pulling on it, and it really just depends on the pull rate in the Antiquity packs, right? I think the pull rate of the non-foil fables, I wouldn't be surprised if they're a little bit harder to get. Maybe LSS is being maybe a little bit cautious with the how easy it is to pull these fables, but put more into the population so that we don't get to 574 again. If we look down here, 574 is kind of a steep number for a playable card, right? And a very playable card, albeit. I don't know how much these Antiquity fables will impact the market. Yeah, that's what I would kind of agree with you. I don't know, like, it's definitely going to bring the price down just because there's going to be some reprint shock. We've already kind of seen that a little bit. But there's just not a lot of these cards out there. But Triple Donnie being the most played card at the moment as far as the fables. Yeah, I just don't know, right? Because the non-foils are going to be vacuumed up by players. Yeah, but I could see 295 coming down. Just in general, I would say don't go out and buy a fabled right now. And if you don't absolutely need it for an RTN or a ProQuest or something, right? Obviously, if you really think it's going to get you that invitation or something, then, gamers got a game. But yeah, we're kind of in in general, in a holding pattern until Compendium comes out. We start seeing those pull rates and kind of adjust from there, right? But yeah, just looking at this guy, 574, man, woof, this thing is cooking. I don't know how long it got. I think this might be kind of like a spike. You know, it's not showing up on this graph, but you definitely saw this thing, you know, almost $400, right? So yeah, we'll be dropping. This will definitely be dropping. So hold off on buying your riches, or wait until you get that new fancy non-foil version, right? All right. With that being said, let's jump over to Eye of Ophidia. This one I think is like a little different. You know, a lot of the same things I said about riches probably applies here as well, because Gravy plays this card. You know, there is some pull on this card playability wise. 1 year snapshot on this one is 323 was the low, 580 was the high. We're currently sitting just above that low. I suspect you see this come down to like 250-ish or so. But again, this is a card that, you know, a player will want to move away from because Rainbow Foils curl. My Eye of Ophidia is a little curly boy himself. I don't play competitively, so it's not that big a deal for me, but you know, it kind of sucks having to ask a judge for a proxy, and then they have to judge how curled it is, etc., etc., etc. So if you're out there calling level or higher, probably, I mean, even RTNs, right, depending on the size of them, you might need to get a token. But, you know, I see there's going to be some shock to the system here, but I don't think there's going to be that much shock on these older Fableds. Again, from my experience, I will not be moving away from my Arcane Rising Eye of Ophidia. Although I do like the micro text box, I still want to have Rainbow Foil, and it's kind of nostalgic for me as well. I think I won't be alone in that boat. And I mean, there's only 21, you know, if we look at this, there's only 21 of these listed here. So expect a little bit of sticker shock. I wouldn't be surprised as we get further into 2026 if the pull rate is not crazy. Like if the pull rate is like handing out candy, which I don't think it will be, then, you know, it's not going to rebound. But I would bet that these fall and then rebound. But I don't see I getting under, I say bottom price again, I would say 230-ish, right? $100 down from here. And that's just a shock value. And I think we start going back up after that. Just my thoughts on this one. Kind of the same for riches, right? I see probably maybe $100 down, and then we start seeing it rebound just because the Rainbow Foil will be rare. You also have a little bit of weirdness where wherever the cold foil shows up, that will also kind of put a pretty heavy downward pressure on riches, the Rainbow Foil as well. Also, the non-foil probably sees some downward pressure once the cold foil is found. If the cold foil is like the world champion gets it, then no. But yeah, we'll go from there. I did put a poll up in the and dude, I love to see this. 11 votes, 100% excited for Penn. Love to see that, man. I think if Gravy LLs, it might sink. Yeah, I mean, Gravy's, the LL will definitely affect riches and I per se, but Gravy's only at like 300 some points. And he's kind of like, unless he gets some really awesome stuff in Compendium, he's kind of like, you know, it's hard to collect a lot of points quickly when you're like top 4-ish, right? If you're not the top meta deck, you aren't going to be like scooping up tons of points. All right, let's jump over to the last reprinted Fable. This is Heart of Fyendal. This is the OG first Fabled. Let's snap this to 1 year. This one's been in and out. I think its heyday was Icelander. And if we look at the 1 year snapshot here, we see 197 is the low, 340 is the high. Again, same as the first two Fableds, we're sitting just above the low. And this one, I think for a card as rare as Heart of Fyendal, you know, there was a lot of WTR out there. I mentioned this in one of my market minutes a couple weeks ago, is that at a point there was like how much WTR was printed, because this is craziness, right? It just seemed like it was just a pallet would just show up, and you would just be like, man, you know, you look at any of the cards on from WTR like a year ago on TCG Player, and it's like, you know, the second listing has 50 of them or whatever. You know, there's like 150 quantity sink below listings and stuff. That's changed a little bit, and I think we're getting further away from that, and it's starting to thin out. This card is very hard to pull. Currently says there's 27 listed, which, yeah, that's about right. I mean, this guy, oh, that's the cold foil up there at the top. I don't see this one dropping to $100. Let's put it that way. I think that there is a floor on these, right? Maybe this one, again, the shock drops it to like 160-ish. But this is the one that I don't think will move, just because it's so far. I just think the rarity of this card, obviously playability has a big factor, right? If this becomes super playable, that changes the game completely. But yeah, I think this one drops the least, and then it does the same thing where it bounces back, where people maybe say, oh, I play with my bling, so I want to buy the rainbow foil, not the non-foil. So again, like I said, this is hard to kind of walk through, because there's like multiple variables that change things drastically. Pull rates, playability, heroes LLing, like all this stuff is like really push and pull on these cards specifically, so it's not as easy to like suss out. But my overall sentiment would be a little bit of a reprint shock. I don't think the reprint shock has fully been built in to the prices we're seeing today, right now, that we're looking at. So expect that to keep going down as we get pull rates. And they look, you know, for the first 2 or 3 weeks of a set, right, everything looks super common. You're like, oh my God, everyone's trying to sell a non-foil Fabled. And then 2 months later, you're like, man, I can't find a non-foil Fabled or an EA Command and Conquer from Hunted, right? It was like, they're everywhere, and then they're not, right? So keep an eye on that, and it'll be fun to see what comes of it on the drop of Compendium. All right, now we're going to get into some Majestics. Again, if you have a Majestic or a Legendary that you want me to talk about, throw it up in chat. We'll type it in and find it out, and find it and do a little breakdown of it. But the first one here is just plain old overcrowded. I guess what I want to point out here is that sitting at $5 currently, and there's 268 on TCG Player at the moment. Low sale price $3.68, $15.70 is the high. Total price is $536, or total sold, sorry, $536. That's a lot of cards. That's a lot of cards. There's still a lot to go through, and you know, this thing's kind of just leveled out. It's seen a little bit of a bump here up to $6, but this card is like selling at a decent amount, right? 17 sold, 11, 26 sold, 14 sold, right? So, you know, I think this card in the past reads very much like your Weakest Link, your Command and Conquer, your Shelter of the Storm even. But the last time I did a live market minute, which I kind of just showed all the Majestics of Super Slam, and I said, well, you know, I think we're kind of at the bottom here, to be honest. And I think some have rebounded, but it's not rebounding much, right? It's like $1 or $2. But I still think this card is like, you know, for $5, you might want to pick these up. I don't think it's going to move very much, but mostly I just want to point out that, like, this is a card that probably would have been like $40 maybe in the past, but the pull rates of Super Slam kind of were adjusted quite a bit for the non-foil Majestic, so we see this down a little bit lower and having lots of stock. If we look at, you know, and it's like, well, maybe people just aren't buying it or playing it, but I mean, there's 500 in the last 3 months, there's 536 sold. We bumped that out. Oh yeah, I should bump that out to 6 months. 1,466 sold on TCG Player. So Overcrowded's being bought. It's just there's a lot of it pulled in the non-foil variant. So, you know, at a certain point, this probably becomes a card that starts thinning out, and we'll keep an eye on it on this channel here. But at 268, really no movement in its near future. But I just want to point out that I think this card is like one of those powerful generics that maybe in sets past would have been more expensive, and just don't sleep on it. Get your play set, go from there. All right, next card here is actually one of those powerful generics that I was just talking about, and we popped that out to a year. 586 sold, $5.76 for the low, $19.36 as the high. It's currently sitting at $31.30 with let's make sure we got this properly. So there's 6 listings currently, and even though TCG Player is saying 26, there's actually 3, 6, 8, 10, 11 copies on TCG Player right now. Yeah, this card, and we were talking about, this is kind of one of the cards that was shouted out on my Discord. Exclamation Discord gets you into the Discord if you want to come and hang out in there. And this card's very interesting, right? Because as we started talking about it, it's like, why is this $30 and why is there only like 11 of them left? And it turns out that it's just like really good in the meta right now. It stops Graphene Churlisala being created off of the, not off the mask, but off of the Orb Reaver Spinneret, which is pretty devastating for Mario now that he only has 3 of those in his deck. The Pallades Fatigue deck, this is like her only tool to beat Victor, because Victor can Remembrance Visit the Goldmane Estate, aka Cast Homes, and she just can't win against that, because you just make sure you don't play any of your Golden Suns, and then you Golden Sun her for like 20 overpower, right? So like I think the Pallades decks plays this for many reasons. Has play into Kasai as well, you know, any kind of gold generation. Also, if Gravy plays a Loan Shark, and Gravy's so starved for gold right now that if you blow up a Loan Shark, devastating. So yeah, interesting card. It's kind of just sat around, right? And then the inventory just went super thin. On the video this weekend, I picked this as one of the cards from Heavy Hitters that might be in the Antiquity packs. I think it's, you know, it probably, I would say it probably is, just because it's like super, it's like a super interesting tech piece that like in these metas is needed, right? Also, who's opening Heavy Hitters? Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, right? Heavy Hitters is actually, you know, I got to remind myself that Heavy Hitters is not that near, like it's in the past, right? So, and it's getting further away. So like not a lot of people are opening it. And yeah, so this one's interesting. It kind of just popped up. None have sold at that $30 mark yet. Our high sale price is $19, and that looks to be like just about where it was at for a while, at least. This is back in December, but yeah, so it started thinning out very quickly. And interesting card overall. Again, this is one of my calling cards on this channel is if a card starts thinning out on inventory, that's when it's going to start moving, right? Yeah, Topple, I mentioned that. That was the first one I mentioned was the Orb Weaver Spinneret, right? And if Mario's one of the top decks, taking away one of those Orb Weavers from him, it's got to be devastating, right? So if you can line that up, obviously you have to have it in your hand to discard it, but it's a blue block 3 generic card, so you're not really asking a lot for a deck to run these just as a tech piece, right? Also, it was good into Florian, but you know, rest in peace, Florian. That's hopefully he comes back someday, but he had a good run. All right, we're going to talk about another card here that super low inventory. Quite a bit of these sold. Obviously, 501 have sold. Low sale price was $10. High sale price is $35. Talking about Midas Touch. I feel like I've talked about this one a couple times, but you know, now it's $30. This was one of the generics from High Seas that was short printed. I don't know why I put up the air quotes. I think it's, we don't know if it was like short printed, but it definitely was harder to pull than other Majestics in the set. And I've kind of been talking about it a little bit. I think this one gained some popularity because of Kasai. And so yeah, there's only 7 of these on TCG Player right now, as you can see. So that's pretty interesting. You know, actually, like sidebar, that's might be a good card to talk about. But yeah, I think this card, I don't know, like if Kasai goes away, does this still, you know, does this like stay at $30? I don't know. I don't know if this is like a reprint target either. Maybe if it was short printed, they knew that they had to reprint it later. I don't know. Like this is definitely not a card you want to play into Gravy, because realistically you just want to keep him off gold, and giving him gold is like a little bit sus, right? We should talk about this card though, eh? I'm glad I saw this. Let's refresh this. So Arcane Skullcap, or Arcanite Skullcap. Currently sitting at $64 for the rainbow foil. Dude, guys, don't call it a comeback. Holy smokes, man. Like this card, let's pop this out to a year. Let's see this card's journey from hell and back, man. So this card got Crown of Providence dumped on it. We got Balance of Justice came in, and like while it was like trying to get back up out of the mud, Balance of Justice came in and just kicked it right in the face. And we're somehow back here again. The rainbow foil, now this is the rainbow foil from Arcane Rising, down to $20.24 back in last summer. So August, September timeframe. And then look at this like meteoric rise. It's just like we had some pretty big sale days in there, and then just boom, up to $40. Now we're up to $64. Looks like there's around 28 of these on TCG Player right now. This one's an oldie but a goodie. I think all generics are on the reprint target list, but I would say this one's lower. Just because of what I just said. I think obviously we're getting the other helmets, right? Crown of Dominion, Crown of Providence, Balance of Justice are all getting reprinted for very good reasons, right? Those were like $150, $200 legendaries, crazy prices, crazy high prices. Just like I don't see this one being high on the reprint list for helmets, you know what I'm saying? So I would be really surprised if this was in compendium, but I think this one might be for later. Maybe when they make another Arcanite piece to go along with the chest, the fortress. But yeah, I think it's super interesting that this has made it back up to $64 because of the surge effects that we're seeing from Acilio and things like that, and the extra block it gives. I mean, when I first started in Flesh and Blood back in 2020, this was the cream of the crop, man. You had to get a Arcanite Skull Cap. I think I paid $175 for my skull cap. Yeah, man. So it really did pain me to see it down at $20. But I'm happy to see it back, making its triumphant return to $64. I'm sure the non-foil is somewhat lower than this from Everfest. Remember, this one's already been reprinted once, and that's where this one sits. I think this is super interesting. Again, maybe Arcanite Skullcap finds a meta, right? I think it's kind of finding a meta right now a little bit, especially with that Arcane Barrier 3. So it was always a good helmet. It was never a bad helmet. Let's put it that way. Like, if you were a new player and you needed like a headpiece and you couldn't afford the other ones, this was like always, I think this one was like always a good staple to get, right? So $64, I was a little bit surprised. We'll see where it goes from there. Fatigue piles love it. Yeah, that's true. I mean, getting that extra block is like super good, you know. Gust Wave of the Second Wind from Rosetta. I think in general, we're going to not really go through a lot of them tonight, but I think in general, Rosetta Majestics, even though the set is kind of on its rotation out, I think Rosetta Majestics are super interesting. There's just not a lot on TCG Player. We popped this out to 1 year. Katsu's kind of seen some legs. I think, what was it? Katsu was in the top 8 of Calling Columbus. I've seen it. I think I've seen on Twitter that Katsu's won some RTNs and stuff like that. And like, let's be honest, Katsu is getting some kind of support in Compendium. Like, if that is like maybe the biggest lock, like I would bet on that, right? Of course, Katsu's getting some support, right? Like, I think you can say that about a lot of heroes. I think they said that, you know, everybody's getting support, but like, come on, we know Katsu's getting help because they've had to like really kind of like, Katsu's caught some strays over the last couple years, right? And I think they want to do it right for him. So, and I think Rosetta Majestics in general are kind of interesting. They're fairly thin. If we look at this, 39 cents is the low, $12.99 is the high. Yeah, I mean, this was like $10 in August for reasons. It says there's around 68 of them on TCG Player, which I always got to kind of do a quick double check. When I'm doing my videos, I always count through these and make sure that it's accurate, but I'm not going to do that live for you guys. But 68, you know, you divide that by 3, you're looking at like 20 play sets. And I think it's a pretty strong card. It's an 0 for 4 that, you know, gets go again, or, you know, situational go again with the combo activator there. Pretty strong card in general. And I think it's played in Katsu for the most part. So like at $3.89, if you think you might be a Katsu enjoyer, this is one that I would probably not wait around too long for, right? As far as like prepping for Compendium, if you feel like some Katsu out there, right? So, but yeah, I think I made a joke, if you guys watch my market minutes, that like it's really hard to find 6 cards that are not like 3 or 4 of them are Rosetta Majestics. In fact, I got another. I thought I only put 1 in this lineup, but I do have 1 more before we go to the chat's recommendations on cards. So yeah, even on this one, I got a couple Rosetta cards. Just can't help it. Just how that set lined up and how popular it is, and like kind of how it seems like the Majestics in Rosetta are very stable. Like they will be used for a long time. I don't think stable's the correct word there, but I think they're just very generically good, right? All right, next one here is Leave Them Hanging. Again, kind of like Gust Wave, where this one is hey, this might be a good deal, I think. This is the cold foil version of the card. Obviously, it's the EA. You know, we look at this, $17 is the low, $45 is the high. So this one hasn't really soared. There's currently 30, so 10 play sets. We do know, or well, I don't think it's like a known thing, but James White on Twitter kind of hinted that Lyeth is getting his hammer in Compendium. So if that hammer does cool things, I think Lyeth is kind of like, I don't think, I won't say he's on the cusp of like doing great things, but if he gets a card or two, he gets his hammer, and you're a blingy boy, you like your bougie cards, you're gonna want 3 Leave Them Hangings in cold foil. And at $21, I think this card is underpriced for how rare they are. These are pretty hard to pull in Super Slam. And also, it's opening Super Slam. I don't know if it was the last time you opened Super Slam, but yeah. Super Slam is a whole time. I don't think people are going to be, you know, unless things go really crazy with the 3 heroes, people ain't going to be opening these. So there's not going to be a lot coming onto the market. And that's what I'm trying to say. So keep an eye on this. If you are a Lyeth dude that wants blinged out Lyeth stuff, I think $21, man, you might want to be grabbing 3 of these if you don't have them. You know what I'm saying? Kind of goes for all the cold foils. Well, all the cold foils in Super Slam are the same pull rate, probably, but some are more playable than others. I think this one's probably one of the most playable ones. I also think like a sneaker pick, and I think I talked about this the last time we did a live Market Minute, is Backspin Thrust. I picked up a couple of those at like $20 because I think Puffin is a deck that's like, to me, like I can see it just not being good until she gets like a critical mass of like untapped cards, right? We already got one Backspin Thrust, but if she gets more in Compendium, then she could pop off. So I think Backspin Thrust and Leave Them Hanging both are 2 of the cold foil EAs that are closest to popping. The EA to be continued is still too cheap for it being included in the Fatigue Pleiades. Yeah, I think, you know, overall Super Slam just has a kind of a funk to it right now. And like the heroes kind of have a funk. And, you know, even though Pleiades is like seeing some success, I think there's still, it's going to take a little bit, right? And maybe Compendium is the set that like really gets people excited for Super Slam heroes, right? I think KO also is like pretty close, you know? So, yeah, I want to talk about Leave Them Hanging because at $21, that's pretty decent. Haunting Rendition. Why does that say rainbow foil? What? This is one of those times when things don't make sense, it looks like. Let's go near mint. So, looks like there's a couple rainbow foils that are under the non-foils. So, if you're looking for rainbow foil hauntings, they're on sale at the moment. This one, you know, so this one I want to bring up because I have kind of a theory that Vincent, we already saw an offhand where you pay one, it's an instant, you make a rune chant. That instantly helps Vincent. Haunting Rendition, yes, Florian used to run this in his combo pile, but the pile that, or the deck that he just LL'd on kind of went away from this, right? This was just too clunky. But Vincent pretty much 3 all the time. You have to have them. You're discarding this a lot of the times to make that rune chant. It's just a very good card. I've been super high on this one since like day one. I think I did like a whole 10-minute rant on why I think this card's so good when we did our tier list. So we look at the 1 year snapshot. We see $4.25 is the low, $29.99 is the high. And that's why I'm bringing this up, because at $13, I think this card, again, is just one of those Rosetta cards that just says Runeblade on it. There's no earth, there's no talent. And I think this is a card that just is really good, and it can be really good in future Runeblades as well. Viserai comes back. He wants to make rune chants. You need rune chants to do something, kind of like Vincent, maybe not free cards, but if Vincent or Viserai has cards that get cheaper, right? Maybe that mechanic comes back with the new Viserai. This card instantly becomes a 3 of in his deck, and especially if that's like his core, like cost reduction, something like that. Vincent obviously plays this. So I think, this one's kind of fallen out of favor. And I think that's the best time to buy cards in Fab, right? That's what we do on this channel, is I try to help and point out when I think cards maybe are the best time to buy them. I think Haunting Rendition, I don't think you have to run out at $13 and buy these right now. But keep an eye on this one. If it gets a little bit lower, which it might, unless Vincent pops off, right? Again, you kind of have to weigh the gamble. Do you think Vincent will be good once Compendium comes out, or do you think, she kind of stays around the same, and then you can pick them up later for cheaper? But just a thought there with Haunting Rendition. I think this card, it's fallen down, right? It was $29 at one point, so keep an eye out for that. Okay, so let's look at chat. I knew there were some cards that came in here. Grandeur of Valhalla. We can take a look at that one for you, Nil. Sorry, it took a little bit. Hopefully you're still here and listening. But we'll take a look for you now. Clear filters. $130. This is a card that I can honestly say I have not looked at maybe ever. Maybe we've looked at it before. But man, look at that. Over the last year, it's really seen a bit of a glow up here, went from 92 to 160-ish. Low sale price was $86.51 for a cold foil Fabled. Again, I think this is one that kind of gets a little bit of it's not playable. It hasn't been playable per se. And so it's just kind of, if it's not super played, the cards in Fab just get kind of wrecked, 193 is the top though. I still think that there is something to this card being cold foil only right now. If you kind of, will they put out a non-foil of this card if they put Valda in a set, right, where she's draftable and they think that she's going to be meta? Probably, right? This is new Fab, right? This is like the next version of Fab where they might be really keeping an eye on prices, right? Because if they didn't, maybe this card goes to $550 if everyone's playing Valda. But this being cold foil insulates you a little bit from that. You know what I'm saying? This is definitely a card that I have in my collection. Don't really play Guardians too much, but again, it's cold foil. Like to have it, in for the long haul type thing. I could see, Guardians getting a lot of, not a lot, but like I can see Guardians being very popular in Sage. Obviously, you can't play this in Sage, but I don't know their prospects for CNC, right? Or CC. Maybe this sees more play, but again, I think a lot of the times in Guardians, you don't really want too many cards that are a liability, being no blocks. So I think that's probably why it struggled a bit. But at 130, I think you're not. It's not a bad price at the moment, right? Especially with the low being like $90. Yeah, and Everfest is a long time ago at this point. Okay, Leyline. Oh boy. Leyline is interesting. Let's not look at damaged. That's not right. So this is a legendary from Mastery Pack Guardian. And I think so this is at currently at 113.95. Trying to think about this one. So Mastery Pack Guardian's super weird. I don't know, sound off in chat if you've opened any like more than a box or two of Mastery Pack Guardian. We didn't open much of it on this channel. I think I got like 3 or 4 cases, and we didn't really open it en masse. So it's a little weird for me to like get the feeling for the pull rates, but if we look at from release, $78 was the low, 175 was the high. There's currently 25 of them. It is a legendary, so you can only have one, place at a 1, which does affect the price. Yeah, I think this is, we've seen this fall down. Again, I think if Guardians get some cards, this card goes up. Because again, Mastery Pack Guardian is such a weird product, and people, I don't think there's a lot of it being opened anymore, right? You're not getting like onesie twosies being opened. And these were like pretty hard to pull. I don't think they were like super easy to pull. So I would say like 113, if you want to play Guardian, you probably want to get this before Compendium comes out, would be my guess. Because I still am in the belief that Compendium, rises all tides, rises all boats. And so that means Guardian should get some support, and maybe that puts a little bit more pressure on Leyline. That's just my thought on this one. Although, I think this is played in Volda, but it can be played in Bravo and such like that too. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that one. All right. The next up is the Evos of Teklo. I'm guessing if we're talking about a bunch of them, we're probably talking about the non-foils. Okay, let's take a look. Set. Now we're going back to Bright Lights. Majestics. So we got Evo Soul Tower at 849. Soul Controller 699. 399. I'm just trying to get the sense of the price overall. Where's the fourth one? I should probably just try to search for it. Evo Steel. Oh man, I just remember that the Marvels are super janky. Poor Marvels. So the Marvels are like pretty cheap, eh? Looking at this overall, and you guys can't see all of them because my head's blocking one. But I would say, you know, before we zoom in on a couple of these, the listings look pretty low. You know, we're sitting at, you know, this one's sitting at 31, but we're sitting at like low 20s on a lot of these, on the non-foils at least. Let's zoom in. 64 of them. I mean, these are definitely going up, right? Because we know Teklo is getting some support. That will create hype. Doesn't mean Teklo is going to be good. I don't know, but he's getting something, right? And you can see that here. This is definitely just the spoiler. The spoilers we got, right? So take that how you will. There's a little bit of these on here. 64. Again, that's only like 20 play sets. But I don't think Teklo goes from like D tier to S tier in one jump. I think they're probably, you know, I think you'll probably get eased into it. So take that how you will. Sorry, I can't really go through each one of these. They'll probably show up in the market minute, you know, as if Teklo starts getting some juice. I would say the Marvels are probably fairly cheap, but then again, they're kind of poopy Marvels. They're like not truly Marvels at all. They're just cold foil cards, so that's an unfortunate thing. Predictions on weakest link. It's at like 30 bucks right now. Let's take a quick look. Weakest link. Yeah, $34. Let's pop this out to a year. $25 was the low. Wow. That was right. That looks like it was right back in here. $78.99 is the high. I think this card is going to be reprinted in Compendium, and it will go down in price. And this card will be solely dependent on meta. So take that as you will. If it's reprinted in Compendium in the Antiquity packs, drops another $10, goes to $20, $15, somewhere in there. If it's not in the meta, yeah, like 15 bucks maybe. 15, 20. People will look to update. I think on this one, probably art dependent, but then again, art's subjective, so I'll take that how you will. But this card's already been dying because the meta just said, no, we don't want to play you anymore. Miss Veil rotated, and then it's just like, see ya. So, you know, if another hero comes out that's playing a ton of instants, then yeah, this comes back. But the reprint's gonna kind of hold off on that a little bit for sure. Cog in the Machine. Are you gonna surprise me? Is this expensive all of a sudden out of nowhere? No, this is $1. I was just gonna say, I'm like, pretty sure this is $1. Let's see, which one is this? I kind of already alluded to my thoughts on Puffin. I think Puffin's gonna be good sooner than later. Create 2 golden cogs. Yeah, I think this. I honestly don't know if Puffin plays this. I think she probably does, right? Because you need these cogs. 1 year snapshot, 68 cents, $19.93. That must be a pre-order. That can't be right. I mean, the graph is showing like under $5. 169 is a little bit low for a card that just doesn't really see much play. So if Puffin does become good, this probably gets eaten. This gets chopped pretty quick, I would imagine. But yeah, I mean, it just depends, right, on Puffin. So EA Lightning Press. That's an interesting card. Uh, Whoa, okay. So this card came out in just over a year ago in December. Well, it was the Rosetta season promo. I got some in Chicago, I know for sure. Currently sitting at $73. The high was $100. The low was $40. $40 is a pretty good deal, guys. I'm not gonna lie for this card. This is a promo that we're kind of far away from already. You know, there's some time from when it kind of went away. We're definitely seeing an uptick of these. It says there's currently 10 of them on TCG Player, which is about right, and it goes to 100. Yeah, this one kind of falls into that. This one falls into the realm of, I think we have to remember Aurora is coming back. And if you are a blinged out Aurora player and don't have these, you're probably going to be sad if you forget about these existing. I think it's funny, there's like a stressor that is going to be built into a lot of these Rosetta cards. And yeah, so keep an eye on that one. I think this one moves upward and it's already pretty thin. Maybe people are holding back because of Aurora and we see some flood back in. But yeah. What do you think's a fair price for flexors? Man, that really depends on reprint, like how well the pull rate is. So I know what the legendary pull rates were in Super Slam and C, right? Are you speccing? I wouldn't say I'm speccing on it. But I'm just saying, like, if you're looking for these cards, I'm not like going out of my way. Arc Lightning. Yeah, $70. Yeah, that makes sense. In fact, I think this might be too cheap. Yeah, if we look down here, there's less than 3 play sets. One thing you guys have to remember is that, and maybe it wasn't like, and again, we're kind of far away from it. These specs, so Germinate EA, Sigil of Brilliance EA, and this spec, Arc Lightning, were not at every calling. These were spread out over the world. Arc Lightning was in 2 places. It was in Seattle and Florence, Italy calling, I believe. Germinate was also in Europe once and in Tampa. No, Heartbeat was in Tampa. So there's like 1 or 2 places these were given out. So they're actually, these Rosetta specializations are actually kind of hard to get. I believe the Sigil of Brilliance EA, which again, there's a Marvel, so it's a little weird. I believe Sigil of Brilliance EA was only at Worlds in Japan. So that card's going to be kind of rare. Obviously, you know, the Marvel's even more rare, but yeah, I mean, this is a card that I could see any new design of Aurora playing, right? So, and they're hard to get. So yeah, definitely $70. I think is maybe a little bit on the low side considering how thin they are. So, faux show. What was? Oh yeah, flexors. Let's look at flexors. I could see flexors being under. I don't know. Again, it just depends. If they go full pull rate, like Super Slam or High Seas legendaries, you're looking at under 50. But it really just depends. You know, this price has obviously has come down quite a bit, right? It was at 160, now it's down to 128, 116, you know, 50-ish or so, I would say. Maybe lower. I mean, this card's played, so it's hard to compare it to like New Horizon or something. Like it maybe doesn't get down to New Horizon levels, but you know, 50, 40, somewhere in there. Hard to say. Did you see the new Guardian headpiece in Pin or the new deck? Yeah, so let's look at that. I know I said I was going to talk a little bit about the decks. It's already 9 o'clock though, and I've been talking nonstop for an hour. Why is EA? Dude, EAs are hard to pull. Like that's the straight up truth of that. And Thickhide Hunter is just a hard card to pull. And I think people were specking on that card for Tough Nut, and then it never came, and then we just haven't seen it. But I do want to talk about this a little bit. Actually, Land, you're not the first person that's brought up why this, this card feels like a waste. Here's my thought on this card. Enclosed Firemind. So it's Arcane Barrier 1, Guardian Equipment Head, blocks for nothing. You're saying, okay, why is this just not Null Rune? This is what I'll tell you. I think since this says Guardian and it has a 0 down in that corner for block, I think they are opening themselves up to Guardians possibly increasing the block on their armor. And if they are planning more Battle Mage type wizards like Icelander and Sage, or even in CC, where you might want armor value and Arcane Barrier, I think this card is a way that they can print a card in Guardian only to increase the armor. So I know that's like not the I know that's not the answer you want. Honestly, it's not the answer I want either. Yeah, Null Rune has that right now, but it's generic. I'm saying that they print this card because they might print a card that says increase the armor value of your Guardian Equipment Head armor by +2. That way it gives them an ability to keep it within Guardian. We already have Guardian cards that increase offhand armor and things like that. So it's within the realm of belief to me, because I'm with you guys. Like at first glance, you're like, yo, what the hell? Why is this just not Null Rune Hood? Like, and so I sat here before the stream started and I was like, what the hell? Why would they do this? And then I was like, light bulb. I think that's what they're trying to do. So $3 of chaff from packs with the Blade Beckoner in them. Land, I think I don't disagree with you that like maybe these decks aren't super exciting. One thing to note is there's no exclusives in them, right? If we're looking right here, this is also in Compendium of Wraith. So that, these cards aren't exclusive to the deck, so you don't have to go out and buy them, which is honestly nice. And I think that's why they look like this. Yes, Null Rune also have block, but it's a generic card. I'm saying this had to... The way this makes sense to me is that it says Guardian. And so that they can print a card that says... They could print another armor piece that says... They could print another armor piece that says, when this blocks with another Guardian armor, each of these armor get +1 or something, or instant, or I'm just trying to think out the box, because I agree with you. At face value, you're kind of like, yo, I don't need new art, like just put Null Rune Hood in there, right? It doesn't matter. But the one difference is that it does say Guardian. So I don't know. That's just my thought on that. I try to give them the benefit of the doubt a little bit. But yeah, it's a little weird at first, but Hey man, uh I'm all for cards that do cool interactions like what I'm talking about. So give me some buffs or something. Yeah, like yeah, that's right. Unity. You guys are talking about Unity, right? Where you block with another card. So yeah, maybe there's something that's coming in Compendium, and honestly, it might not even be in Compendium. Maybe it's like future proofing for sets down the road or something like that, right? Like that's just my thought on that. Okay. But yeah, Blade Beckoner seems to be like, yeah, there's even Nullroot in here, so I think there is something, maybe some future proofing here with this being Guardian equipment. But yeah, I mean, overall, I don't know if there's like a. I kind of want to talk about the decks a little bit, but I'm gonna be honest with you guys. You know, it's a lot of hey Pummel. The decks are interesting. You know, I would say that I maybe I'll just do an overall thoughts on them real quick. And I haven't watched the video of the Bravo versus the KO just yet. What are the boots? Oh yeah, I can go back to that. So it's kind of been hit on a little bit, right? That these decks don't look super exciting. Which I don't disagree with you guys. I would say that, you know, I'm a little surprised. I would have thought there would have been like a piece of armor or something that's exclusive. Oh, yeah, sledges too. Yeah. So the basalt boots are, if you control seismic surge token, this gets +1, and it's temper. That's pretty zany for Sage. Red Bull that drop everywhere. Dude, that Red Bull that drop's gonna be like $100 if it wasn't everywhere. Dude, that card's so gross, man. Is it actually in here? Wait, am I? Oh yeah, right here. Yeah. First one, of course. But let me. So what was I saying about the overall? So I thought there would have been exclusives. I would have kind of bet on there being exclusives when they announced them. But you know, looking at them, kind of thinking about why there isn't exclusives, and I think, you know, there is, you know, there's a fair amount of backlash on a product when it has an exclusive. So it's like, oh, I want to play Bravo, so then I have to go buy this Bravo deck for my Sage deck for my calling, blah blah blah. So I think it's probably, I don't know. The part of it is that I think it's good that there's no exclusives, right? So if you're an entrenched player and you plan on buying some boxes or some packs of Compendium for your CC deck, you're probably going to get some of these exclusives or these cards, these new cards in your packs, right? They're commons and rares, so probably, right? So that kind of like forces these Sage decks into a more niche role of like actually being an onboarding product, right? If you think about it, Armory decks come out, they can't print a ton of them because they don't want to like fill the shelves of every LGS with a bunch of unsold Max decks, right? But if you want to play Max, or if Max becomes good, and they're fixing this by reprinting it in the gym packs, you know, some cards are reprinting it here, and some of the, I think the KO deck has Run Roughshot in it. So it's not like it's like you have to get the Armory deck, but when they first drop, you kind of have to go out and buy the Armory deck to play your CC deck that you modified, right? So this really does, for this kind of like pigeonholes these decks more into a onboarding product, more so than we've seen from any other product that LSS has done. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I think it's a little bit on the good side, but I understand where Land's coming from you know, like these decks kind of being looking like chaff. You do get a pack in each box. And I'm not trying to be like the salesman and like butter you up and be like, but you get a pack. Granted, I get it. But I think, you know, if you're a brand new player walking into an LGS, you've never played Flesh and Blood, I still think at $20, this piques your interest more than an Armory deck. Really. So we'll wait and see. We're going to find out together. I'm not saying that you guys are completely wrong. But I understand the concerns that you guys are voicing, but also I don't think it's as bad as it seems. I think these fit a very niche role, right? And it's a little bit surprising to see them go a different direction, but if I step back and think about it, it kind of makes sense. You know, so competitive out the box. Let's see if any of these beat Ira, Chain, or Oldhim. Again, you're not totally wrong. I'm not going to stand up here and glaze LSS, but they have like, again, you know, let's call a spade and let's be fair. They have said that the meta that there's sizable changes coming with the launch of the format officially with Compendium of Wraith. So I'm gonna hold a little bit of judgment until that happens. And then I think we can reassess how competitive these are. Am I saying you guys are way off base? No. No, I am not. But am I trying to stay a little bit positive about it and say we don't know what the format's going to look like? And they did say in the last dev that the format is going to change quite a bit. Yes, they did. So I hope that happens. I also believe you guys pointed out Chain. I also believe Chain is going to get hit in a big way. I think I would not be surprised if they are day one bans for Sage coming out with Compendium. Chain, I could see Soul Reaping probably has to go, even though Soul Reaping isn't even played in some of his winning decks right now in Sage. But I think that card's just egregious and probably shouldn't exist in the format. Also, Vincett's going to catch some strays, but I think Read the Runes probably has to die too. You gotta get Chain back to playing his shitty blood deck cards from Monarch, like Ghostly Visit and shit. You can't let him play cards for free. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I agree with you guys. These decks don't look like world beaters by any means compared to what we're seeing at the Battle Hardened level right now. But I do think there's going to be I believe there's going to be a pretty heavy shift, either with bans or like silver bullets. Maybe there's an instant card in Compendium that just says kill 3 tokens. And it's just like, that just wrecks Chain. Like, you just can't play the game anymore. I don't know. That's not the most graceful way to take Chain out of the format, but you know what I'm saying. I don't know. Like, call me a homer, call me a slappy. But I'm just going to be... I'm going to just try to be slightly more positive and say, I know changes are coming. So, hey, if Compendium comes out and Chain just like beats wholesale ass again on the world premiere or on the calling that weekend, and it's like 8 chains in the top 8, well, land, yep, you were right and I was wrong. Is that a thing that's impossible to happen? No, it's not impossible, unfortunately, because Chain's busted and Oldhim's busted. But come on. I'd be so sad if they just like forgot. Like, whoops, we forgot Chain is in there. But anyways, I'm just having some fun with it now. I'm going to say they were wrong. I didn't. Didn't think the community would cook so quick. I mean, maybe, but also, yeah. I mean, I think they know Chain exists, and I think they know Oldhim exists. Runeblade D-React. Yeah, that D-React's pretty gross. I think that D-React's gross because it gets you a resource with RuneGate Chain. That's the problem with it. Is that the arms and the D-React. So if you have a one rune chant, right, which kind of stuffs your turn with RuneGate Chain and Sage right now, you can then D-React for free, block 4, which is huge in Sage, gain a resource, gain a rune chant, go to 2 rune chants, and then if you shackle a 3 rune chant or 3 cost rune gate, you can break your arms and play it for free still. Yeah, that's quite strong. But I think if you take out Read the Runes, the deck kind of gets so inconsistent that you really can't play that version of it anymore. I'm spitballing now, by the way, but I don't know. It would be interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, yeah. Ripple all away. Yeah, I mean, if you could play Ripple away, but I mean, there could be definitely Ripple style effects in commons and rares and compendium to like tone down things. Do you think they will ban the Mastery Pack Guardian 4 blocks? Yeah, I think there's a lot of cards that maybe we do know one thing. LSS has stated in the past that they kind of just want to let people play with the cards at first and let them have fun before they just like day one ban things. Looking at you, Kraken Ether Vein. Looking at you, Dagger Ira, right? Zephyr Needle Ira. So we might be, they might have just said, hey, beta season is Wild Wild West, Chain Oldhim, have your day. But we know in Compendium that shit's going to get real and we're going to be playing much slower games, right? I hope that's the case. I really do. I mean, honestly, guys, it has to be the case because Silver Age has to be a success. And I think if there's any sniff of like these problems that we're talking about, I think we see emergency bans and shit. Because I think Sage is like super important, right? So yeah, cards on the table here. I think we see changes for sure. Either with like the cards and the meta that are coming out. There's so many cards coming out, and or we just see like bans right out the gate. So anyways. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I'm not used to talking for an hour and 20 minutes straight. Even when I'm opening packs, I don't talk for an hour and 20 minutes straight. Dude, podcasting live is hard. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Hit the subscribe button. We're still trying to get that at 2150. I'd appreciate it if we could get there. That'd be a cool goal to hit. What's DM Armada say? I can steal that from him, make the number turn into a different number. That would be appreciated. But yeah, thanks guys. I know the streams have been a little infrequent, but we're going to try to get back into the groove of things. Obviously, I'm going to London for the world premiere. So check out, just as a shout out, I will be doing content. It won't be live, but it will be from the event as fast as I can process it and put it up on YouTube. So there'll be box breaks of Compendium coming live. There'll be shorts and stuff. I was doing some tests in Columbus with that, so those will continue. I'm going to try to really do some on-site content to give you guys more of a vibe of what a calling is, what a world premiere is, and so on and so forth. So check that out in the next couple weeks, but we'll check you next time. Peace.